Hi, and welcome back to the Smart String Teacher YouTube channel. And welcome back to this series on mistakes to avoid as a string teacher. I'm Grace Law, and I just love sharing my tips on teaching strings with all of you guys because I wish I had a resource like this to help me out when I started teaching strings. So I hope these tips are helping you. And if they are, and you want to dive deeper, you know that I have teacher training courses on my website, smartstringteacher.com, okay? So check them out. Meanwhile, you can also sign up for a free book on 12 solutions to the most common string playing problems. You don't want to miss out on that because it'll make your life a lot easier. So sign up for that book in the description below, okay? All right, so today's tip is on music reading. How do you make music reading easier? Well, I get this a lot from teachers who are struggling with certain students who just keep writing the notes in their music and can't seem to learn how to read it properly. So there are two aspects to this. Number one, and this might come as a surprise, but there are certain ways to approach music reading that you need to avoid because it's confusing your students. And number two, in order to make music reading more successful, you need to introduce it in a way that is logical and leads into naturally understanding how music reading works. So I want you to consider this, that those of us who are music teachers, of course, we figured out music reading right away. Like, it was logical to us. It just made sense, right? But a lot of students are left behind because music reading was not introduced in a way that made sense to them. Now, one of the things I want you to avoid, and hopefully you already know this, but it took me a while to figure this out, and that is never, almost ever, introduce "Every good boy deserves fudge and face." Okay? Why? Why do you want to avoid that? Number one, I want you to imagine what that looks like on the chalkboard right now, okay? And look at it from the point of view of someone who's brand new to music or someone who believes that they can't learn very well. What does that look like? It looks like a random mess of notes that somehow you have to memorize. So when you introduce "Every good boy deserves fudge and face" on the chalkboard as the very first tool for learning how to read music, you have just created a barrier for, I would say, most of your students. So for me, I never even need to get to the point of introducing that, okay? Because you want to do the opposite, and that is to approach music reading in a very logical manner so that they come to the conclusion of how it works. So in my course, I teach you how to do that step by step, but I will briefly explain it here because it's pretty simple, and once I explain it, I think it'll make sense to you. So number one, I introduce what is called the note circle, and that is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Okay, so that's one full circle, and then they practice the circle from any point on and doing a full octave of notes. So B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, etc. They practice doing that from any note within the circle. Then they do the same thing backwards, okay? This is a lesson you can do at the very beginning of the year. It's very accessible and easy for them to do and fun. And it's the beginning of note literacy. Now, the second step is at some point, once they get on their instrument, you want to apply the note circle to naming all the notes on the strings, like this: G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. And backwards. And then you quiz them on that, okay, to make sure they understand how it works. Like, what's the second note on the A string? What's the third note on the D string, etc. Okay, so now they understand the logical sequence of notes. The next thing you want to do is make sure that your method book introduces all 4 open strings at the same time. Why is it important to do that? Because then they see a pattern that all the open strings are evenly spaced apart. And eventually, when they learn to place each note down, they'll see that it just logically goes in a sequence. Okay, so you want them to notice that, discover that, and point that out so that they understand that, oh, if this is D, then the next note must be E, it's my first finger, and the next note must be F, it's my second finger, or whatever the instrument they're on, etc. So have them memorize the open strings. That's the only thing they need to memorize, and then logically figure out what each note is. Then it's less intimidating, and it naturally leads to ledger lines with no problem. Now, if your method book doesn't do that, that's okay. I have worksheets on my website, smartstringteacher.com, that you can use to get your students to practice that. But the important thing about worksheets is make sure your students are doing it deliberately and not just treating it like an art project and just copying notes and numbers and doing it like that. You want to make sure that they are thinking about what they're doing. This is a D, it's open string, then this must be an E, it's first finger, then this must be F, it's second finger, etc. Okay, so if they do it deliberately, you'll have a lot more success. So be very diligent about checking to see what your students are doing. Because some of them will like to draw all the circles, and then they'll draw all the note names, and then they'll draw all the numbers, or whatever, just to get it done, right? Okay? So don't let them do that. Make sure they are thinking about it. Then part of the worksheet is to have the students compose a piece on each string. And if they're able to read and perform the songs their partner wrote, then you know they understand how to read and how to figure out the notes for themselves. And originally, I only made up 2 pages of worksheets, and that's all I needed, because once they understood the logic of music reading, I didn't need any more worksheets. But I did make a few extra for those students who need more practice, and for those of you who like worksheets. For me, once they serve their purpose, I don't use them anymore. So you don't need a workbook this thick for practicing note reading if you're introducing note reading in a manner that is logical. The other tip is, if you have some students that need more practice, a great thing to do is to photocopy the pages that they were working on in their method book or pieces, and let them use that as worksheets. So instead of writing in the names of the notes on all their pieces and ruining your method books or music pages, just photocopy it for them. Just ask them if they need some extra practice. If they can't read it, then give them a copy. Don't let them write in their music or method books unless it's just 1 or 2 notes that they need reminders for. And again, make sure they're doing it in a logical manner, showing that they understand how music reading works. So that's my tip for music reading. Once I stopped introducing Every Good Boy Deserves Fudge, I had a lot more success with music reading, so I hope that helps you. And this method that I've developed has gotten at least 90% of my students to understand music reading right away. So give that sequence a try, and if you want to learn more about how I start my beginners so that they have a really great foundation for playing and reading music, remember to check out my courses at smartstringteacher.com. And don't forget to sign up for that free book. All right, that's it for today. We'll see you in the next video, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss it.